I think a lot of fans are holding Taylor Swift back, by which to mean they're looking for the basest, most surface level of meaning to confirm the things that they have seen in the tabloids, and then once they find that, they cease investigating any further, and they shut down anyone who suggests there might be an alternate or secondary or third meaning. And often they do so in such a manner that it discourages other people from wanting to do that level of research or wanting to share that level of research. As someone who has been a professional writer, who has taken a lot of writing classes in pursuit of my film degree, and who has analyzed a lot of Taylor's lyrics, her music videos, her performances, and things like that, I'm here to tell you, if you think that any recent Taylor Swift song is just about one topic, you are probably very sorely mistaken. And if you're one of those people who believes that everybody on the internet who shares their opinion about Taylor needs to share the opinion that you have, you are actively holding Taylor back in the process. I'm being unrelatable in an era of relatability. First off, it is really hard to overstate just how inherently unrelatable Taylor's life is. I think because she still talks about love feeling so high school and things like that, that it is easy for us to believe, oh, she's just like us, she gets it. And there are absolutely emotions and parts of the human experience that Taylor is experiencing the same way we are, but the large majority of things in her life are so inherently unrelatable to us that Taylor needs to make metaphors in order for us to get them. And I also think that maybe the reason that a 34-year-old woman keeps coming back to relationships that feel so high school is because that's the last time that she was in any way really relatable to us on a direct one-to-one basis. That was the last time that she could have been on the same trajectory as the rest of us normal people. Before the media and the press and being speculated about, and all of those things changed her life in ways that we cannot relate to unless we too have the press looking in on our lives. This was before agents and managers and labels and things like that had direct influence on who Taylor could meet in her life and therefore who she could date. But it goes a lot deeper than just everything about celebrity relationships is inherently very different than our relationships are. From the way that they meet, which could be your agent talks to my agent and then we hook up, to the way that they break up, which may involve NDAs. Everything about those relationships are so very different to the ones that we have. And it's even more than just it's really bizarre when everyone you meet knows a lot about your dating life and probably has a strong opinion about it that may or may not be founded in fact in any way, shape, or form. We cannot relate to having our masters stolen. We cannot relate to everyone thinking they know us, like the deep inner human us, when they at most know the things that they've read about us in the tabloids and the things that we've put in our lyrics. We can't relate to having every action, thought, lyric, breath overanalyzed, diced apart, speculated upon. And we certainly can't relate to pouring our hearts into everything that we do only to have it consistently boil down to, this is the man that it's about. And because Taylor's life is so inherently unrelatable, she very often takes the emotions, how she felt in that moment, and considers another scenario where either she's felt those emotions before or she believes other people have felt those emotions before, and she uses those scenarios as metaphors so that we can kind of get a grasp of what it might feel like to have our lives work owned by the person that we hate most. And one of the reasons that we know that Taylor's life is so unrelatable is because when she used to give interviews more openly, she would admit to the fact that how unrelatable her life is. But she has downplayed that a lot more recently, especially because I do think a big component of what makes her so successful is that relatability. And I do think that as she reveals more and more of what's behind the curtain, that she does lose a little bit of that relatability, or at least people consider, wait, maybe it's not as relatable as we think. Maybe there's different layers to it. Like this aspect is relatable, but not this one. And especially because of this unrelatability, I think that Swiftcrafters who believe that they 100% absolutely got it right, they know what the songs are about, they know what happened in Taylor's life, they are the only ones, this is the definitive source. Nearly all of them are at least wrong to a degree, right? And maybe they are totally correct about what happened with Joe Alwyn, but maybe they didn't realize the 3 other relationships that she had in private that nobody realized about because she was traveling around in a laundry bin. We only see what Taylor decides to show us because we know her habits are to hide from us ever since Reputation. We have to assume that the things that we are being shown, especially when she's very deliberately put on an outfit to make a statement and things like that, she's had her makeup done up, she's had her hair done up, when she's called back or her people have called called Backward, or Travis's people have called Backward. All of those things are productions, they are performance. I'm not the first creator to ever say that Taylor's work is performance art, so I'm not going to make that argument here, but what you need to understand is that every time we see Taylor, that is a deliberate decision that Taylor has made to present herself to us. So it is kind of much like when we put a picture on Instagram where we crop out all of the mess on the sides. Taylor very easily crops out all of the mess on the sides and just focuses on the artfully designed photograph that she wants us to see. We know that there are like hundreds of songs that Taylor has like written and we've gotten snippets of, or we've heard snippets of, or something like that, that have not made it to an actual album. There are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of songs that no one outside of Taylor and the person that they are about have heard. And again, if fans believe that they have the correct interpretation, they only have a correct interpretation based on the evidence they are being presented. They have a lot of evidence that is not being presented to them, and therefore they can never be 100% correct. And also, when Taylor leaves clues that are blatantly obvious, I have to assume a thank you Amy has occurred, and that she has changed some of the details such that the person who is it about knows that it is about them, but not necessarily the general public. Because ever since Reputation, Taylor has been saying, you keep it secret to keep it safe. This is something that she has gotten from Lord of the Rings, absolutely, but definitely from her own life as well. Keep it secret, keep it safe. She has spent years saying if you value something, you keep it close to your chest. So we have to assume that the things that she's shoving in people's face the most are probably deceptions, misdirections, and things like that. A lot of people thought that Taylor was very happily in a relationship with Joe Alwyn for 6 years until they broke up at the beginning of Eras Tour. Then Jack Antonoff came along and casually dropped the fact that, oh, by the way, this song was written in 2021, a full 2 years before anyone thought that there were problems in Midwood, before the breakup was announced. And if you go back and you look at Taylor's interviews from Folklore and Evermore, she talks about how lonely she was. And sure, like, everyone was lonely during lockdown to a degree, but no one was as lonely as Taylor Swift, who was apparently going through a breakup, or at least relationship strife during that. And yet she was so honest in those interviews about saying how lonely she was and things like that. And yet people still believed that she was happily in a relationship with Joe because of the things that were in the tabloids and because they hadn't had a breakup announcement yet. And when you consider that versus a lot of the tabloid and the TMZ and all of those headlines from the time, every other article was Taylor has proposed, Joe was proposed, oh, actually they're secretly married, but actually it's a spiritual marriage, not a legal marriage. We now know none of these things were true, but so many people rode the horse. Like I said, when you examine the headlines, when you examine what happened in the past versus what we find out to be true in the future, we find that very often Taylor lets us believe a great many number of things because it is convenient for her, because it gets the attention off of her. A lot of people thought that she was very happily with Joe and was going to marry him, so they didn't notice that she probably was seeing other people. We have no idea who she was seeing. And let me be clear, none of this is pointing out fault. None of this is me getting upset. None of this is saying, oh, Taylor is manufactured and everyone else is real. This is the game that you have to play to get ahead in Hollywood. You have to be good at the PR game. The reason Taylor is as good as she is because her and her PR team are on point. And that is not degrading her. That is appreciating that she has mastered one of the most ephemeral, one of the most intangible skills of how to exist as a woman in Hollywood. It is marvelous. And what I hate is we cannot even appreciate it, because the moment we suggest that anything about the public perception of Taylor or her relationships is untrue, her least informed fans come along. No, she was happily with Joe Alwyn, and she doesn't use PR. She doesn't need PR. She's the biggest pop star in the world because she just writes the best songs. Okay, I get it. She can be talented and she can still use PR. You need both to get ahead in the industry. That is why there are so many talented as crap indie artists out there who do not have that meaningful of a career, or at least do not have that financially meaningful of a career. I'm sure it's very emotionally meaningful to them. But Taylor has mastered both of these skills, and when you don't allow people to discuss them, it really makes it so much easier for people to just cut Taylor down to the basest element and say that all of her songs are about the men that she dated. Most of her songs, at least to a degree, are about her, her perception of herself, her perception of Hollywood and showbiz and the industry, especially her more recent work, especially her songs on TTBD. There are very few songs, like I said, that have come out in, I would say, the past 6 years or so that are solely about one topic. And this is a skill that she has utilized to allow herself to keep herself and the people that she loves the most safe. So I cannot find fault in her for doing that. And a lot of people, the next thing to come along is, well, her fans would be so upset. That makes her relationships not meaningful anymore. Okay, we know that the relationships on Bridgerton are fake. We still like the way the plot is written. Like, you can be invested in Taylor and Joe or Taylor and Travis without necessarily believing that the relationship that you've been presented is wholly the truth. You can be like, okay, this is a story that has some or many fictional elements, and the fictional elements are great. I'm invested in this. This is fascinating. You still get emotionally invested in things whether they're fake or not, and a considerable number of relationships in showbiz are fake. Let's discuss that. And I don't even necessarily want to say fake, because PR relationships very often have some element of realness to them as well. At bare minimum, you are sharing a secret with somebody. You have to spend a lot of time with them. They become important to your life. It is not just it renders that relationship inherently meaningless. There's something I didn't think I made quite clear enough, and that is that just because a relationship is PR doesn't mean that it's like all PR. Sometimes the only part of it that is PR is like the exclusivity of the relationship. Often celebrities pretend to be in an exclusive relationship while they are seeing other people in the background, while they're cheating, while they are in an ethically non-monogamous relationship, whatever the formula is. A lot of times these relationships are in play to make celebs' relationships seem more stable, more long-lasting than they usually are. But before we get into Taylor in specific, we really need to go into showbiz in general, right? Because I think most people are judging Taylor versus normal non-famous person standards. And that's stupid. She's not a non-famous person. She is one of the most famous, if not the most famous, woman in the world. She is going to be following the celebrity playbook, and you have to look at what is normal and what is normalized and what is typical in Hollywood, in showbiz, to get an understanding of what Taylor does and why. Throughout the history of celebrities, when you look at their relationships, you will see the same patterns over and over and over again. Relationships and marriages for PR, because celebrities are very heavily judged for their relationships. The church really loves going after Hollywood and the recording industry if they feel that celebrities or celebrities' art violates the standards that the church goes against too harshly. And a lot of times the church threatens to get litigation involved. They threaten to lobby for Hollywood to have laws applied to it to make Hollywood and the recording industry self-censor themselves. That's why movies are rated by the Motion Picture Association. That's why albums are rated by the recording industry as explicit or not. All of those things are a means to protect themselves from very litigious, very heavily lobbying, very large, very often Catholic church groups. Look into the history of the Hays Code and everything like that if you want more information, because that happened during a time that was very formative for the Hollywood set, especially because that was an era when cameras were becoming more common, when paparazzi were becoming more common, when tabloids were able to provide photos, so people were more likely to believe the fact that these stories that are being shopped about these actors and actresses are true. In addition, Hollywood and the recording industry have very often seen an investment that they have made fail because the person that they invested in has done something that is morally repugnant, and then their fans abandon them at the last minute. And when you consider the fact that nearly everything in Hollywood and the recording industry is about money nowadays, it is not considered a good investment to invest in somebody who will publicly go out and just act a fool. There are some actors and actresses and singers and songwriters who can get away with it, but not ones like Taylor, who especially catered, especially at the beginning, to a very country, very heavily Christian audience. And she still has a lot of fans, and a big reason why she is as big as she is because she manages to win over both sides at the same time, the conservative side and the liberal side. If she goes goes too far in either direction, she is going to alienate fans. And I do think that it's hard already for some of her Christian fans to accept the fact that she's been in so many relationships. One of the most obvious pieces of evidence of this is just this belief that she needs to settle down and get married and have a kid because she couldn't possibly be happy. And I get that there's a lot of evidence in TTPD that she has been unhappy for a long period of time, but the evidence doesn't suggest that she's unhappy because she hasn't been knocked up and barefoot in the kitchen. The evidence suggests that she's been unhappy because she hasn't been able to be who she wants to be, date who she wants to be. She has, since the very beginning, been very much criticized, even when her relationships were so chaste and so innocent seeming on the outside, because she had said she was in relationships with so many people, which wasn't even that many people. Especially in the beginning of her career, there was this perception of her that she was loose. And that doesn't go well when you're trying to win over the church crowd, too. And like I said earlier, and I want to stress this again, no celebrity, and not even Taylor, is too big for PR. There's a reason why so many people know the name Tree Paine, which is Taylor Swift's publicist, if you're not familiar. Tree Paine is probably one of the best in the biz. Tree has managed to maintain this reputation for Taylor that never skewed too far in one direction to alienate a large number of her fans from either side. I don't think, like I said, that she's going to be able to do this forever. She's going to have to choose sides at some time. Everyone has to choose sides at some point in time. And I do wonder if maybe we're getting to that point. Another thing to keep in mind is that celebrities are significantly more likely to be poly, to be swingers, to be LGBTQ+, to be slow to find relationships, to cheat on other people. When you are not financially dependent on a relationship, it absolutely changes how you think about relationships. But also, all of these relationship configurations are significantly more common amongst regular people than I think a lot of people realize, unless you're also in those scenes. Because being part of any of those scenes can hold you back at work, especially if you're in a career field like finance or something like that. So a lot of people do try to keep those kind of things on the down low, especially if they don't have a lot of money. But even rich people do, because they have a lot of money that they could stand to lose. Those things are significantly more common than people realize, but they're even more common than that amongst rich people, because also a lot of the reason that people go into showbiz and Hollywood and things like that is because they're attracted to this alternate life. They don't necessarily want to settle down and have a family and have 2.5 kids and a picket fence and half a dog and a cat. They want to have a life that they have control of. They want to do the things that they want to do. They don't want to have somebody over them. And this manifests in them having a very different relationship attachment style as well. I'm in the position where my parents were probably considered lower class when they started out, and we got to like upper middle class by the time I had started dating. My financial status has changed a lot over the years, and the richer men that I date, the less they are interested in this idea of fidelity. Sure, they don't want you to sleep with a lot of men because they don't want you to have another man's baby, because a lot of them are very concerned about legacy and the management of their estate. But a lot of them do not care if you have a female friend who is handling all of your emotional needs, so they don't have to. I have to assume, because these things are happening at the like $100,000 a year income level, that they are happening even more frequently amongst people that are significantly more rich than that. Taylor is very likely not the exception to this rule. She became famous at a very impressionable age. She became around famous people at a very impressionable age. She obviously reads a lot of other female actors and actresses and singers biographies and stuff like that, because she talks about other people's lives compared to her life as well. And especially, she points out Elizabeth Taylor a lot. Elizabeth Taylor had PR marriages. She had lavender marriages. She had lovers on the side. She had lovers that the people who supported her didn't support. And Taylor keeps pointing us back to Elizabeth Taylor biopics and autobiographies, and he can be my jailer, Burton to my tailor. This lyric refers to one of Elizabeth Taylor's marriages. A lot of the other celebrity figures that she points to are celebrities that had PR relationships, or celebrities that were in lavender relationships, were celebrities that were part of the LGBTQ community, or celebrities that were poly or swingers and stuff like that. It makes a lot of sense that she is part of one or multiple of those communities. These are not fringe concepts. These are not uncommon circumstances in the circles that Taylor came of age in. Just because it's not common to you does not mean it's not common in Hollywood. We have to consider what is common in the circles that Taylor participates in. In showbiz, especially as a large star, there is significant financial benefit to having a PR relationship, and we know that Taylor is very motivated by the money. And beyond Taylor herself, and just looking at Andrea Swift and Scott Swift's marriage, they give me we got married for financial reasons, like power couple type vibes. I get that vibe especially from the Scott Swift email, and they are divorced. Like, a lot of people still think that they are married. No, they divorced a long time ago. And I get that the hostile takeover thing that Scott put on the birth announcement was a joke, but also jokes tend to come from places of truth. I'm just saying, there are much nicer business words that you can use. And because all of this, there are just an innumerable number of variables obscuring the truth, right? Because Taylor has been writing songs for over 2 decades. It is not only her career, but her passion, her outlet, and her art. Taylor stopped writing songs that are about one thing and one thing only, I would guess about 6 albums ago, but I know that there are people that would even take that argument further back. And we have to consider some of the things that Taylor herself has said about the songs that she's written, right? Every bait and switch was a work of art. The bait and switches weren't things that she had to do that she hated. I mean, yes, there's probably a huge part of her that hated the deception, but she liked crafting the stories, the narratives. She liked the action. She liked the fun of it. She did, to a degree, like tricking people, because when you trick those people, you keep your true loves, your true family, your true people that you care about safe. She takes pride in crafting these deceptions artfully, and it is a skill that she has that is so remarkable, so marvelous, so interesting. It devalues her to insist that talking about anything other than the public narrative is bad and evil, and we shouldn't do it because Taylor wouldn't want it. A lot of people take things that Taylor has directed at the media and infer them as directed as other fans, right? Because Taylor doesn't mind the speculation, because Taylor kind of pumps into the speculation. Every time she puts a hint in a song, she's putting into the speculation. If she didn't want us to speculate, she wouldn't use hints, or she wouldn't use hints that were publicly accessible. She knows things that are private with that person, so that person will know what the song is about, but we won't. She puts the hints in because she wants us to speculate. What does she not like, though? A, she doesn't like when people think they know her, think that the assumptions that they have made about her are the correct ones, regardless of what those assumptions are. And she also doesn't like when the media takes those assumptions and runs with those assumptions and convinces everybody that that is the truth of it. Like, you can be okay with your fans speculating about things because your fans are going to have good-natured, high criticism opinions of you. And criticism, a lot of times we think of as a bad concept. But if you don't get criticism, you don't know what you're doing wrong. And if you don't know what you're doing wrong, you can't improve. If you protect people from criticism, you are also protecting them from improving. So sure, when that criticism is unfounded, when it comes from misogynist places, when it comes from outside of the house, people that aren't Swifties, yes, absolutely. We as fans should be attacking those narratives, but we shouldn't be going against other fans, right? Something that she's also said very recently, I can show you lies. I think this is very important prefacing before we go into debut and Reputation Taylor's version. I believe that Taylor is trying to transition her fan base from believing they know everything to realizing that they know nothing, so that at the point in the future when she decides that she wants to be more open about things because she's less motivated by the money, she can do so more seamlessly. People won't feel as deceived because they will realize that the evidence has been there all along, and they will realize, like I have stressed throughout this video, it is something that she did because she believed it was the only option for her. Whether she had other options or not, it doesn't really matter. She believed that it was the only and the best option for her, so it is the option that she took. Most of us would do the same thing in the circumstances, I would say. Especially if the people that were suffering were the people that we love the most, right? Because it's very likely that some of the people that have been speculated as being in relationships with Taylor and the fans have attacked them as a result were people that Taylor actually loved, and Taylor got hurt when her fans attacked those people. We are at a time when more fans than ever understand the nature of showbiz, understand the handlers, the agents, how everything is controlled, especially when you enter into showbiz young, especially when there's a lot of contracts and a lot of money involved. People are more aware than ever that celebrities are under intense pressure to deliver a specific image and to maintain that image forever, pretty much. And look at how hard it is when a Disney celebrity tries to transition to having an adult career. It's because once they wedge you in a tiny little box, it's very hard to escape from that tiny little box. But if you deviate from that tiny little box, people are like, hey, you're supposed to be in that box. And I want to address directly, specifically, the fans that are like, Taylor couldn't and wouldn't lie because she's told us that she has been lying. So if you still believe that, I kind of need to look into that a little bit further. She will, she has, she admitted to it, and she should, especially if it is what is helping keep her and the people she cares about safe. And if you are so hurt that she would lie because it keeps her safe, you're selfish and you don't care about her. You just care about the things that you're getting from her. Another thing she's told us, and thank you, Amy, that she would change the details so that only the person the song is about would know what it's about. That's not Taylor telling us that this is the one and only time that she's doing this, right? This is Taylor telling us that this is a tactic that she can and will employ. And we genuinely have no way of knowing how long she's been doing this. But I would definitely say that a lot of the songs recently that have come out that have very obvious signs that seem like they're pointing to one specific person, those may be bait and switches. Those may be the parts that were changed. Just a thought. And then look at So High School. Do we really believe that Taylor, at 34 years of age, is honestly reflecting about a relationship that she's happy about at this time with that song? Because when I say So High School, it's in a, oh my god, that's so high school, as if to say it's very immature. And if you look at the song, it seems like the only thing that they have in common is the fact that they end up doing it all the time. Like, they spend all their time watching his movies with his friend and joking about his father. Nothing about her, her life, her importance, the things that are valuable to her are in that song. It seems like a relationship that's concerned about only one thing that is just for the moment. And yet people are like, oh my god, it's so romantic and it's about Travi and they're gonna get married any day. And most of her other songs are give and take. There's a little about her, a little about the other person. This song is so like, you. And beyond just what Taylor has put in her lyrics, there are a lot of other things to keep in mind about Taylor and her songwriting. She loves double and triple meanings, double and triple entendres, inside jokes, references to songs and song lyrics and other bands and things like that. She loves a good reference. Puns, homonyms. She said she's a mastermind. I think that applies to a lot of her songwriting too. And some people ignore all of this stuff entirely and just focus that the things that they see in the tabloids and the pictures that they see are the story, and they try to make the songs fit. And a lot of people are like, these songs are so confusing, I don't get it. Ever since those playlists came out in advance of TTBD, which recontextualized a lot of happy love songs as like actual sad songs, and people were like, oh, I didn't really realize this was a sad song. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's because you assume if it's happy and it's got a peppy beat that it's a happy song, and if it's slow and it's that it's a sad song. And it would be one thing if you just were content to believe those things in a vacuum, but the people who believe those things believe them so strongly and are so intensely connected to those beliefs that they harass anybody who suggests that there's another meaning, an underlying layer. It's a reference to something, unless Taylor has said it themselves, or unless they can match it to a tabloid picture of a public relationship that Taylor has been in. Taylor managed to hide herself and her love from view for years. Taylor only allows herself to be seen when she is wearing the clothes she wants to be wearing, going the places she wants to be seen going, with the people she wants to be seen around. There is no way of knowing what's happening beyond that. And there are so many days when we don't see any hide or hair of her. We have no idea what she's doing those days. We very seldom see Taylor not made up, in her sweats, in her gym wear anymore. Pretty much ever since the Reputation era, she's been very diligent on how she is seen and when she is seen and everything like that. Which means that everything we see in those moments is performance art. Like I said, the Instagram view, the mess on the sides we don't see. And more broadly, TTBD sounds like a tacit admission that Taylor is very messy and has been this whole time. And I love that for her, because that's probably one of the more relatable things that she's said in years. And it does seem like part of what Taylor is doing right now is trying to dismantle this faux image that she has made and reveal more and more of what the truth may be. And I think that's the big reason that the imagery has changed in the Eras Tour. It used to be the Lover House would burn down, but now the Lover House is revealed to be a stage. It just falls over. Before I go any further, two of the least insightful comments I get on videos analyzing Taylor's work are, it's not that deep and it can't be about X because it's about Y. There's a joke that I vaguely remember about a story, and in the story there are blue curtains, and the author insists that the curtains are just blue because they are his favorite color. Meanwhile, the English professor goes into the deep symbolism of the blue curtains, and the joke is that basically English students have too much time on their hands and shouldn't look into things too deeply. But that ignores all of the things about our subconscious and how our subconscious controls the things that we write. But we're not even in that situation, right? I think a lot lot of Swifties perceive us as being in that situation where like Taylor is saying there's no meaning and we're just assigning deep layers of meaning. No, Taylor has been seeing since day one there are deep layers of meaning, there are Easter eggs, there are other things going on. Taylor has stressed loving double and triple layers of meaning, symbols, Easter eggs, puzzles. She loves that stuff. She always has. It has always been there, and it has only increased in complexity as she has gotten better as an artist. TTBD isn't long because it's unedited and unfiltered. It's long because it is the product of 2 years of some of Taylor's most intensely focused efforts that recontextualizes so much of what we thought we knew about Taylor's life. And against the it's not that deep type, yes, it is that deep. It's very often that deep. People want you to believe it's not that deep because they just want you to accept things unquestionably. The more someone tells you that something is not deep, probably the deeper it goes. And that is something that I highly recommend a lot of people keep in place. But because you have so many of these comments, so many of these criticisms on so many posts, if they even violate the tabloid image of Taylor the slightest, teeniest, tiniest little bit, it really can derail a lot of conversation. And a lot of the conversation about Taylor is not happening on bigger, more public spaces anymore because a lot of the people that make it have taken their content smaller and smaller throughout time. There are a lot of different sides of the Taylor Swift fandom that have different beliefs than just like the narrative laid out from the tabloids. A lot of people have different beliefs about who Taylor may or may not have dated throughout the years, and a lot of people have evidence to support that through the text of Taylor's work and through photographs and things that other people have said and things like that. Most of the people that are doing the best work about that have the least tolerance for the BS that comes along with presenting their findings publicly, and I think as a fandom, if we actually want Taylor to be appreciated and taken seriously the way we appreciate her and take her seriously, we really need to round up the people that are acting like children and make it known to them that these interpretations, that things aren't that deep and that there's only one right interpretation, those opinions are toxic and they are actually holding the fandom back. And on a deeper level than Taylor, all of the media that you consume has some level of control over you, right? It controls what you see as normal, what kind of things you're interested in, what things you want to learn more about. So it's very important that we, at least on some level, are aware what we're consuming. And that's why I really don't like consuming anything new uncritically when I'm like half asleep. I stick to creators that I know and I like and I trust when my brain is in that state, because I know that my brain has its least critical thinking power in that state. And sometimes when I have impressions that I find to be wrong and I examine them and I'm like, why do I think that? It is because of something that I saw in a Shane Dawson conspiracy video back in the day, because I was watching it, I was falling asleep because I thought it was funny and pointless, and now no. That was not good. We need to take more control over the things we consume, on the things that we consume on social media. And I know some people are going to be like, well, just block those comments, just ignore those comments. It's nice to think that we can just ignore comments, but I've found that even people are really good at ignoring comments. They're not. They're just good at ignoring the pain in the moment. That pain is still compartmentalized somewhere. And I think that is why so many YouTubers, even ones that seemed like they were stronger than anything and shouldn't have emotional problems that would like lead them to have to take an emotional break from YouTube, I think that's why so many creators end up in that burnout state, because you're consuming so much negativity. And I do think it is actually egregious the way that platforms do not recognize and try and keep fandoms more siloed. Like the degree to which TikTok puts people that believe one thing about Taylor in the same spaces as people that believe the exact opposite thing about Taylor and just lets them fight because it keeps them online forever. That's not good for anyone. That is so bad for so many different circumstances. With Taylor's work especially, we have a very rabid group of fans who try to control and manage and mitigate people's impressions of Taylor by chasing off any content creators who make content that they don't wholly agree with. And I think that that is holding the fandom back to such a big degree, and it is something that I think as a fandom we need to be addressing more if we don't want things to go completely to crap. And like, very little frustrates me the way people assuming there's only one true canonical explanation for art does, especially when they go in their comments and they scream, no, that can't be about Robin Williams because that's about Aaron Dessner's son, Robin. Let me blow your mind. It could be about both. Taylor so very often has multiple things cooking in every oven But also, I don't know that Taylor or Aaron Dessner ever said that the song Robin was about his son. So I don't know why they're so strict on interpreting it that way either. One of the biggest frustrations that I have is people will also say, this song can't be about X, because one time in 2012, she said it was about Y. That was many years ago, and there was a lot of motivation for her to lie back then because her career was still on the rise. I want to discuss for a moment why I feel people think like they need to have the correct answer, because I think it is something worth looking at. When you look at the reasons why people feel that way, I think we can address the problem a little bit better. And I admit I'm guessing. I'm not like this. I love a good story. I don't care whether it's true or not. I love reading the different theories and seeing the different evidence and being like, wow, that's cool. Maybe these two theories could work at the same time, but we don't know until she writes her autobiography, but it's really cool that we got these theories. So it's not my personal perspective, to be fully transparent. I do think a part of it comes from wanting to prove that you're like an OG Taylor Swift fan. The OGs, like the OGest of OGs especially, are crazy on a different level to me. I know that there are some OG fans who have like recordings of rare songs from soundcheck and stuff like that, and because they are the only person with a copy of it, they don't share it with anybody because in their mind, it devalues it if everybody else has seen it too. Don't understand that stuff. But I do think people like exclusivity or feeling like they're right, especially if they don't feel like they're right about other things in life, and Taylor Swift is the one thing that they feel like, yeah, this is the thing that I'm right about, you know? And let's be real, I feel like there's a lot of bigotry involved, to be frank, because Taylor does have a lot of fans who come from that patriarchal church structure, and many of them have not fully deconstructed that, and I think a lot of people still have a lot of trauma from going up under that, and it hurts them to see Taylor bucking through that trauma and believing other things for herself and doing things for herself that defy the church, because they, on some level, whether subconsciously or consciously, want to do it themselves. They want to be Taylor. They want to be able to go out there and be 34 years and unmarried. The number of fans that I see who directly believe that Taylor is not happy and cannot be happy because she does not have a husband and she does not have children. And I think a lot of her fans want Taylor to be like them because they believe that if she's not like them in some glaringly obvious way, that they will not be able to enjoy her songs anymore. One of these days I do want to do a larger video on people that process their emotions via music. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know down below. Why would Taylor do this? If you've been paying close attention to this point, you probably already have some good ideas why. But it's a big question that people often have, and I know that there's some people that are just going to skip to this part of the video, so let's discuss it a little bit. The answer is really multifaceted, first off. Like I said before, it is really important to understand that Taylor exists in the celebrity world. The things that are normal for celebrities are going to be the things that are normal from Taylor. This is what a lot of celebrities are doing. PR relationships, less serious relationships, non-monogamous relationships, queer relationships, all of those things are significantly more common amongst people that are in Taylor's circle. The large majority of people that are in her circle fall into one or more of those categories publicly, so who knows how many people in her circle fall into one or more of those categories privately. At the same time of having this different level of what's normal, celebrities also had this higher expectation to conform to normal such that the church won't sue or lobby against the recording industry or Hollywood. So it is a weird line to walk, and it is one that Taylor does so marvelously. Like I said, I wish people would realize these things more so they could see like how smart she is about navigating all these things. And also, Taylor is in an unwinnable quandary, right? Because Taylor has said before in the Champagne Problems speech that she gets a lot of emotional validation from knowing that the people in her audience have gone through the same emotions, have felt the same things that she has felt before or feels currently. But at the same time, she also knows that media speculation and interest in her relationships tends to be the thing that ruins them, right? That ruins the things that are most precious to her, and she has a very powerful, she is what I would call in my community a family-oriented sim. So I believe that she found a way to protect the person or the persons that are most close to her, and she took that path because that is her core value as a human. Like, that is one of the deepest parts of her is her family support. There is a reason why everyone in her family works for her company. Even though her parents are divorced, they seem to work very good together, and that's one of the reasons why I wonder if there was maybe never romance. It was maybe always about finance and power and things like that, at least to a fairly large degree, just because the way that they never have seemed to have problems working with each other and things like that. Maybe there was never real romance to get in the way. And a lot of people say, well, just don't write songs about her romantic life. And I don't really think that makes a lot of sense, right? Because try as she might to get people interested in songs that are about her life, her experience, and things like that, People are always more interested in the man, and that is like, it is so frustrating to see the level of internalized misogyny in her fandom, especially the people that don't care about all of the feelings that Taylor has about her career that are clearly throughout TTPD, all of the ways she's been hurt in her career, all of the things that she sacrificed for her career and things like that. Taylor's biggest bait and switch was convincing everybody that TTPD was about her relationships, her love life, and things like that. Let me list what I think is the truth in the album, right? TTPD is about her career, her relationship with fame, how the media impacted her relationships, the predatory figures who hurt her early in the industry, how purity culture and good girl culture have hurt her, and so much more. Like I said, we learned that she had a lover or multiple lovers, because I do think that she composites multiple individuals into one character in her songs sometimes. But we know that she had one or more lover that she had to sacrifice for her career, for her masters, and then she lost them. I can't imagine giving up your love because you believe the most important thing in your life to do is your art, your work, your masters, everything like that, and then losing that. I now understand why Reputation was so bad for her. Like, it's really heartbreaking to think of. And it's just so many things are sad to think of. And I think that's a level that makes people not want to interpret too. The songs get even sadder when you look at the alternate interpretations, because a lot of them really point out the truth of how bad the industry is and how punishing the industry can be. But of course, the large majority of the chatter about the album and the large majority of articles and videos and stuff like that are all focused on, oh, this song is about Maddie, this song is about Travis, this song is about so-and-so. So few articles have focused on the parts where it is about Taylor herself and her career in its rawest form, and that is some of the most brilliant, most relatable, most moving content that she's ever made. TTPD just impacted me on so many different levels because I sacrificed my love, my relationships and stuff for my career as well, because I dated primarily people who would make my career safer and easier and things like that, instead of people who I actually love. And whilst I was able to trick myself that I was okay through it via loving the concept of it instead of loving the person or the relationship, and like, I didn't get fed in those relationships the way I needed to be, you know? But there's been so little focus on how much of this album is about Taylor herself, both from the internal perspective of her own feelings, but also Taylor looks outside herself a lot and views herself from an outside lens a lot. I think she does put herself in the perspective of her lover a lot too, because there are songs that sound like two sides of the same coin. And I can't imagine how heartrending it has to be to pour your feelings out to the world so many times and to mostly have the takeaways and the concern just be, oh yeah, this song's about Maddie. I think back to the Rep prologue when Taylor was like, everybody's gonna try to paternity test this and say that they know which man it's about, but nobody's gonna guess. And then everybody's like, obviously, clearly this is about her boyfriend, Joe. That doesn't make sense. Those things make so little sense together. It's just another example about how Taylor has been telling the truth in some levels the whole time, but people just ignore it because it doesn't match with what they want it to look like. TTPD will likely be regarded as her magnum opus unless she tops it. Because once people are actually allowed to dig into this, I think people are gonna realize how many layers, how many things are being discussed, all of the different things, because it's not even just about Taylor herself. There are so many fictional characters and fictional stories and things like that that are referenced, and she's so good at metaphors. I love it. So where does this leave us? I'm sure that some people's takeaway is going to be like, well, if we can't possibly rewrite, then why speculate? That's the worst way to see it. I think a good way to see it is, I think about how much space has been opened for analysis and things like that if we just throw away the men and only look about what we think the song is about. There's significantly more room for speculation, and now hopefully more people are going to start to realize that we can't possibly know the truth, and to get a little bit less attached with things as this biblical truth that they feel like they have to attack anytime they see anybody question it or say that it might not be the truth or say that there might be another truth. Until or unless she writes a definitive autobiography, we're never going to know for certain. But honestly, that just makes so much room for connecting themes and discussing symbols and all of these different things that people thought had very obvious meanings in the past. Maybe they don't. Maybe there's another meaning. Maybe there's 5 meanings. Let's look again. And realistically, this is another reason for Taylor to do that, for her to make puzzles, for her to hide things in there, because it makes us listen to her songs over and over and over again. And this does absolutely change the angle that I analyze most of her songs from now. We can't analyze for right or wrong. We can just analyze for more supporting evidence or less supporting evidence. Taylor Swift's favorite muse is Taylor Swift, but there's also a lot of evidence to support an argument that she writes from the perspective of her lover too. too, so we should keep that in mind. And I think one of the reasons she possibly did that was to prove that she's learned from the circumstances, to prove that she can see through that person's eyes now, and maybe she was mistaken in the past. Songs may be about multiple people or multiple scenarios where she felt the same way, or where she feels that she felt the same way as a historical figure. Cassandra is the best example top of mind for that. I also believe that some songs are about both Taylor and her lover at the same time. The Black Dog, the Albatross, and the Bolter, I think they're both aspects of Taylor's personality, but also aspects of her lover's personality that, because they both share that personality aspect, that's what drew them together, if that makes sense, I hope. So like, I think the Bolter is both the part of Taylor who bolts and the person who bolted from her, if that hopefully clears it up. Songs may seem to be about one person only to change targets midway through. The best example Taylor does that is He versus You. She'll start out a song saying he, only to swiftly switch to you afterwards. But also it's very possible that the target of a song switches between verses, or she may even have some sort of a puzzle scheme where she does 13 lines about one person and 13 about another. I think this is something that a lot of us should think about more and try to analyze from this perspective more, because she also uses the word decode. And I think that there is actually codes being used here, or at least red herrings. There's definitely red herrings because she uses that word a lot too. Songs about relationships may be metaphors for other things. Songs about other things may be relationships for metaphors. You could probably do some significant analysis on Taylor using relationships as business metaphors if you're really bored. Muses may be composites of multiple people. A good example is, I think, John and Jake may get mashed together a lot just because they are her age gap relationships when she was really young. Stuff like, in the age of him she was 30 and wished she made coffee in a French press. I think that's probably the age when she was dating much older men. My theory about the Lover album is actually that it is a composite muse for all of the relationships that were real as opposed to the ones that were just PR. And that's another thing to consider. Like, relationships can be both. A relationship can start out as PR and become real. Most real relationships end up having a layer of PR at some time, and that adds another layer of confusion over everything too. There are bait and switches, lies, and obvious misdirections. You can debate over which parts are true and which aren't, but you can't debate that the whole thing is true and literal and that we know everything. My inclination is that Taylor has been saying for years that she wants to keep her private life safe and secure to herself, and thus that any hints that seem really directing us too hard at one person are very suspect, especially in recent songs. Some things are literal, some things are figurative. There's a lot of room for argument on both. Example is the Cruel Summer vending machine line. I personally think it's a reference to a hospital vending machine, and she's saying, I'm not dying because I'm not dying, but the unspoken thing is, but my mom might be. A lot of people take it to mean I'm not dying as like I'm not being over dramatic, over emotional. The presence of one lover or muse does not necessitate the absence of another lover or muse. She could be with multiple people at the same time. She has hinted about being with multiple people at the same time. It is not on us to make a judgment call because we do not know if her relationships are exclusive or not. It is on the people who were in relationships with her to determine whether or not they should feel like they were cheated on or what have you. We cannot assess that. But also, if you think it's about only one thing, look harder. I have no idea how long this video is going to be because I've already exhausted one battery, so I'm gonna assume it's probably gonna be like an hour. If you're still here, thank you so very much. I am a very small channel. This helps me out so much. It really, really does. Watch time is one of the best things to help out a small creator. If you like this video, I have a video coming up about TTPD being designed to sync up with the movie Dead Poet Society. I'm having a lot of problems with the copyright on that. It would be fantastic if all of you would subscribe and check that out when it comes out, so it could really help me out with that. Show all your friends, post it in subreddits, because I think it's huge to Taylor's analysis.